I'm going to talk to you today about why I look forward to the day that my story is no longer exceptional. I grew up in Huntington, Long Island. By all intents and purposes, my upbringing was very ordinary. Ordinary for Long Island. I realize this is Indiana. But my parents did a good job raising me. My general upbringing was, there's nothing too eventful I can tell you about it, but one thing I can tell you is ever since I was a little kid growing up, I wanted to be in the military. In fact, if you look at my kindergarten yearbook, beneath my photo, everyone in my class said like what we want to be when we grow up. I said I wanted to be in the military. Most people my age at 5 wanted to be a Ghostbuster or Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle. If they're doing that today, good on you. I mean, congratulations, live your dream, brother. So after graduating from high school, I came here to Purdue, where I was a member of NROTC. Graduated from Purdue, was commissioned as a second lieutenant in the United States Marine Corps, spent about a year training down in Quantico, Virginia, and then was stationed in Camp Pendleton, Southern California. I had a platoon of about 40 Marines I was in charge of. I was responsible for training, leading, mentoring, and preparing them for what was ultimately going to be a very difficult deployment in Afghanistan. As stated, while I was overseas, I was hit with an improvised explosive device, suffered subsequently the loss of both of my legs, and was medically evacuated back to Walter Reed in Washington, D.C. So here I find myself waking up in a hospital bed to a very shocking reality of, I don't have any legs. You know, what is the rest of my life going to look like? You know, how am I going to carry out my daily tasks? Am I going to need a lot of assistance? You know, how is my life going to be? Am I going to be able to get another job? I'm not going back to the job that I was doing in the Marine Corps. I mean, I was in the infantry, and it's as part of your job description is your athleticism. It's kind of like if you play for, you know, the New York Jets or something. You know, if you suffer a catastrophic loss, you're not going back to that job. I mean, it's just kind of like the way it is. So, am I going to be able to find another career that I am passionate about where I feel like I can actually add value to society? Am I going to have a normal dating life? You know, am I going to be able to have a girlfriend, start, you know, a family, and that kind of thing? Which actually has turned out to not be a problem of all things. I mean, I could give a TED talk on my Tinder experiences, but we don't have enough time for that. But trust me, they are hilarious. So, you know, I'm 25 years old when this happens to me. I'm not ready to retire and give up on life. I have all these things that I want to do in life. I want to travel. I want to, you know, I want to have a career that I'm passionate about where I feel like I'm adding value to society. I want to do a lot of things. I don't want to sit in the hospital bed taking oxycodone and playing video games for the rest of my life. So, unfortunately, at this point in time, I didn't really know of anyone else who had been in my position, at least at this point in time, and had achieved all the things that I wanted out of life. So, you know, here I am, and here's all the things in this chasm of just like complete uncertainty in between. A convenient thing used to happen if you were catastrophically wounded like this in war. You died. Nowadays, the battlefield technology and the medicine and the training that we have has gotten to such a point, people like me get to live the rest of my life. But so on the other side of that, it's kind of like, all right, well, you know, what now? How does this look going forward? So rather than trying to think and come up with a plan, I just started doing what I knew how to do. I started working out. I started doing, you know, physical therapy 4 or 5 hours a day. I did a lot of soul searching to try to figure out what might I also want out of life. What else, you know, might interest me that I am still capable of performing. So at this point in time, another veteran before me was working as a trader on Wall Street. Prominent Wall Street firm brought me onto the trading floor for the day. I didn't really understand what was going on at the time, but I could hear yelling. I saw a lot of stress. I saw a lot of anxiety, and I said, you know what? I like that. I want to do this. So from there, it's kind of like, all right, well, now I have to study, work hard, you know, do what it takes to sort of like move forward and get into that. So after this, studied hard, got into a good business school, recruited, found a job on Wall Street where I work as a stock trader today. So why should you hear this? Why should you hear my story of how I had adversity and how, you know, I was able to move forward, at least onto a path towards success as I define it? Is it for some sort of self-aggrandization or bragging? Absolutely not. This is actually where it brings it back to my original point when I first came out. I do not believe I am an exceptional person. I do not think there is anything that I have done that cannot be repeated. And at least I look forward to the day when this happens to someone, of course you move on. Of course you go on to success and you move on with the rest of your life. Unfortunately, that is not the case, typically. And I'm not just talking about other wounded veterans. Things happen. People get in car accidents. People get in surfing accidents, construction site, whatever it is. Things happen in life, and people become significantly disabled or injured. If you look at the statistics, there's a roughly 30% employment rate of working-age Americans who are identified as disabled. Or to put that another way, there's a roughly 70% unemployment rate of disabled working-age Americans. Now, I would surmise, based off of my own experience and what I've been through, that in most cases, of course it varies, in most cases, I would say that it's not necessarily because of the physical disability itself. It's not because of the mechanics of whatever it is that happened to you. What I have felt is overcoming a lot of negative social stigma around disability. We have a conference today called Tearing Up the Box. And we say that with a sort of jubilation. Well, I would argue that we all know the box is wrong. The box is wrong, and each person has kind of a different perspective on that. But a lot of the preconceived social constructs and sort of social frames in society, and a lot of the stigmas, are quite simply incorrect. And I think we recognize that. So a lot of people would look at, what I've been through in terms of, okay, the physical therapy was hard. And yes, a lot of the physical therapy and surgeries and everything I did was difficult. But honestly, the hardest part about my experience and my sort of moving forward in transition was actually the emotional aspect of it. It was sort of like, moving forward in a very uncertain environment. Like, number one, I didn't know what the rest of my life was going to look like. I'm in sort of a dark tunnel. I don't see the light at the end of the tunnel. I don't even know if there is a light at the end of the tunnel. But it was safe to think that, okay, well, with a lot of hard work, I'll be in a better place a year from now. But being in a hospital environment where an amputated veteran is a very common sight, to going into the civilian world where most people have never encountered someone like me. And a lot of my journey at this point in time was something that, to a certain extent, we all kind of go through. It's being comfortable in your own skin. It became very pronounced to me because of my disability, but we all kind of go through it. And I remember when I was very early on in getting wounded, I was very ashamed of my appearance. I was ashamed of the way I was. I used to be a tall, very athletic guy, and here I am now struggling to figure out how to navigate stairs or something like that. So there's a lot of uncertainty in how people are going to react to you. But what do? You just have to throw yourself into more situations. I've been through enough new social interactions. I've met enough new people. I kind of know how most people are going to react to it. And at this point in time, I don't really care. I'm kind of comfortable in my own skin. And if I meet one of you after this or something like that, and I feel that you're uncomfortable, I'm going to crack jokes. I'm going to make it awkward. And through that shared awkward, we're going to sort of bond. That's kind of my solution. People find, different things through it. But, so success. I wouldn't say that I'm necessarily a successful person yet. I would say that I am on a sort of legitimate path towards success as I define it. I'm a firm believer that one, everyone has to define success for themselves. You have to have your own definition of it. And two, no one can give it to you. You're not entitled to it, but I believe that every person has the right to pursue success as they define it. So as I define it, and this is going to sound crazy coming from Wall Street guy, but I don't define it as a certain accumulation of material wealth or things or income. For me, anytime I felt true happiness, or I felt you know what, I'm hurt, but everything's going to be okay, or I have sort of self-respect, it's in behaving in a manner that is I'm becoming the person that I want to be. I'm behaving congruently in a certain situation that is ultimately the kind of person that I want to be. That's how I kind of look at it. So moving forward in this environment, if you look at a lot of other people, so back to my original point where, a lot of the reason people maybe aren't moving forward, they aren't able to sort of pursue their career path or ultimate, idea of success. I mean, you know as well as anyone else, the economy and society that we live in is becoming increasingly technology-driven. I sit in front of a Bloomberg monitor and trade stocks all day. You don't need legs to do that. I can do that from a wheelchair. You can be in a wheelchair, have a lot of disabilities, and be able to write code for computer programming software. You can be a graphic designer. As technology continues to replace a lot of things, the old social stigmas that we've had are becoming, or at least around disabilities, are becoming obsolete. And it's really not anyone's fault of being uncomfortable perhaps with someone who has a disability. It's just, I would also guess that most of you probably don't have like a friend or someone your age that you hang out with who has a disability. So in the absence of that experience, you're probably just not used to it. You probably don't have maybe you take your grandma to Cracker Barrel or something and you gotta help her out, but you probably don't have a friend you're going to Harry's or Jake's with who's significantly disabled, so it's not really your fault, it's just that you're not exposed to it. So, in conclusion, what I would like to leave you with, and I hope the perspective you've gotten, is that the only disabilities in life are laziness and apathy. And if you have the psychological resilience, you can overcome any sort of adversity. Thank you.